All right, so today we're going to be talking about Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act or ACA and a few other stray topics like death panels. So, to start off with, remember that individual mandate that we were hearing so much about? And, there were reasons to criticize it, in my opinion. And really, just to be clear, this is going to be mostly about my opinion, but I am going to introduce facts here and there. So, they're real facts, not like the zany conspiracy theory kind of things. So, yeah, there's that aspect to what I'm going to let you know about here. But the interesting thing is that despite being criticized so much, the individual mandate was actually something favored by the Heritage Foundation, which is what they call a right wing think tank. Now, I don't know how much actual thinking really goes into these so called think tanks, but they definitely had some ideas, and one of them was something like the individual mandate. But anyway, there were also other Republicans like Mitt Romney, who people seem to forget was the Republican candidate for president and everything. But he actually had something quite similar to Obamacare in his state and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's not like it was just some liberal idea. They like to throw around the word liberal all the time. They're very liberal with calling things liberal, I guess you might say. So it's not like the individual mandate was just a tax penalty that was used by Democrats or liberals or leftists or, any of those other scary terms, groomers, I suppose they might say nowadays. Of course, right now, that tax penalty basically does not even exist because it's been set at zero. At least from what I understand, if that's changed, go ahead and let me know. But the last time I checked, that was the case. So why was it important that something got passed, like the Affordable Care Act, or just some sort of reboot to the healthcare industry, as it is called? Well, before the ACA passed, insurance companies already had all the customers they could handle and were happy to let the market decide which was the most profitable plan and which was the least profitable. And I said they had all the customers they could handle. Well, obviously some of them they couldn't handle, so they were dropping customers like they were hot rocks in some cases, or the coverage just wouldn't cover what the customer needed. And then, of course, there's the practical debate of, like if you are sick or injured, should you be a customer first or a patient first? There was that little problem. The market decided that some people don't need health insurance coverage if they couldn't afford it. Plus, of course, customers or consumers don't have whether their injury or sickness is profitable to a corporation as their primary concern. They just want the problem to be fixed or at least treated, because not everything can be cured or 100% solved, right? I mean, we are mortal beings after all. So, contrary to what many conservatives want, it was not likely that the flailing embarrassment of an approach to healthcare that we had would remain completely frozen in time. The wannabe experts crafted their plan, and like an exotic variation on the Jurassic Park scientists who extracted dinosaur blood from mosquito trapped in sap, our intrepid healthcare policy professionals found our parasitic system, which was stuck in the compromising honey trap of greed and power, and siphoned out some of that dinosaur system DNA, promising to inject some of that sweet and sour dino system blood into our individualistic arms so we can better bond with our dinosaur parasite corporations and get better outcomes, all while being threatened with fines if we don't pay money for the gift and grift of being compelled to get these dinosaur system injections. So, okay, I just worded that in a very confusing way. Um, with the Jurassic Park references and dinosaur injections and DNA and stuff like that. Well, maybe it's because I've watched Jurassic Park too many times and I have mixed metaphors here and there. But it was my cute little way of saying we've got a dinosaur system. Using that analogy risks having me sound like an anti vaxxer or something, and I might have lost some of you there. But the point is, they tried to sell ACA as something cool and innovative when in reality, it was just them trying to cling to a healthcare system that left insurance companies in control, which is a dinosaur system and far different from how other, in some ways, often better healthcare systems work globally. So Obama took some heat over his approach, and understandably so. I mean, if you implement anything new, even if it's something good, it's going to get criticized. But of course, if it's something bad, it's going to become, you know, even more notorious because you've got something new and bad at the same time. But also, sometimes things are criticized not for the right reasons. So in this case, rather than criticizing the basic flaws of having a corporate dinosaur system, the right wingers frothed at the mouth over Obamacare being part of a plot to institute sinister death panels designed to kill your grandma. Or maybe that old rickety bitch would end up in some of those FEMA camps. And I guess you could say, bring some s'mores, grandma, because we're going camping. It'll be your last outing this time or whatever kind of crazy message they were trying to give at the time. But the whole death panel thing, that was never really something that we heard about much after Obama, right? So it's almost like they were just making that up or completely exaggerating what the actual policy was, which was apparently just to remind people that you know uh, ha- having the end of life care is an option. Like you can reject the idea of, life sustaining care if you want, or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was something like that. And they tried to make it seem like, oh, they're going to try to convince your grandmother that she should kill herself or something, just something crazy like that. And, we never really heard that much about it since Obama left. There was one legitimate critique, though, that I can recall. Obama wanted the public to believe that, and this is a quote now, if you like your healthcare plan, you can keep it. Well, that was not quite true. Some people lost their coverage, even if new people gained some coverage. It wasn't necessarily the end of the world for most people, but Politico or a PolitiFact named that quote the lie of the year for 2013. So that's, a little significant. If you say something like that, you get a sound bite that's going to make you sound bad and like you're a liar and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you can say about it what you want, but that was actually not true, and especially not as true as he was making it sound. Still, all the conservative pundits who claimed Obamacare went well beyond the limits of the U.S. Constitution and all that kind of stuff. They had it semi debunked when the Supreme Court itself actually upheld Obamacare. Remember that? In fact, as an obvious sign that Republican goofballs were exaggerating the dangers of Obamacare, many have become silent about Obamacare overall. They don't really even talk about it as much as they did, especially compared to how hysterical so many of them previously had been. They acted as if it was something apocalyptic. Like, oh shit, they're going to murder you in the streets if this thing passes. And of course it wasn't quite like that, you know. But that's how so many of these things develop. There's a lot of hysterical reactions, and the end of the world is nigh. I mean, how many end of the world predictions have we had based on relatively minor things at this point? It's very reminiscent of the satanic panic in the 1980s and 90s, which obviously some people are trying to bring back again. So a lot of these things kind of tie together thematically, at least from what I can tell, like everything's a sinister plot. Nothing can be even relatively benign. You always have to make things actually seem worse than they are, which in some cases can be tricky. But some people they really have that skill to make everything sound dangerous and dark and sinister. And really, this is coming from somebody who actually kind of has that habit himself, you know? So it seems like people are trying to outperform me when it comes to like being pessimistic or concerned and all that. It's funny, like in the past, I don't know, 20 years or so, it's really been the case that I used to think that I was maybe some extremist, but no, not really. I'm actually relatively moderate compared to a lot of what's going on um, these days. And the other simple fact is Obama was not trying to appease the left by adopting more universal health care, at least not particularly, especially when so-called Obamacare was not actually universal health care anyway. It was sort of a pathetic compromise to keep our system in line with the frozen in time folks. The people say you got to keep things as they are. You got to keep them frozen in time, like the mosquito trapped in the sap from Jurassic Park. You know, while simultaneously allowing Obama and others to say, "Hey, at least we tried something different." And you got to give some credit where you got to give some credit. And for those that question the premium increases, note that other countries don't have to worry about individuals going bankrupt over medical procedures or ambulance rides or things like that. So, if you are concerned about your premium jumping up, maybe look into how these other countries are doing this shit, and say, hey, maybe we can learn a thing or two because these people are not, they're not losing everything just to get some health coverage. In fact, from what I understand, plenty of people overseas who watch Breaking Bad find the situation of Walter White to be pretty crazy indeed. And not just because he winds up selling meth and going down a darkened path, but because he did it all to afford his medical treatments. Remember, that's actually one of the initial themes of the show that kind of gets a little bit lost as the show goes further along. And really, those who rigidly cling to this BS system and shudder at the idea of universal health care are really no better than Gus Fring using his business as a front for a highly questionable operation that rakes in far more cash and otherwise needlessly jeopardizes a lot of lives. Because what do you know? That's what a for-profit system actually does. It rakes in tons of money. You sell it as if it's something purely benign, but you're making money in the insurance industry while trying to cut costs at every opportunity. And in some cases, people really don't get the care they need. And I know that back when I was spending more time in debate forums and whatnot, we would talk about healthcare, and some people would be like, "Oh, you still get all the coverage you need. You get all the healthcare you need." But it turns out that's not true. I mean, some of us even know that anecdotally at this point, right? Surely, like, I mean, I know I've seen evidence in terms of studies and whatever else that really paints a different story, but I think we've also heard about, you know, uh, people who were denied coverage in anecdotes and whatever. We could talk to people, and of course, doctors are also known, unfortunately, to sometimes get some money to sell a certain kind of drug or whatever. And of course, that's where some of the anti-vax stuff comes from, because people are suspicious of doctors, and that's partly, I mean, I hate to make the anti vax people sound like they're on the right track, but that is partly because we do have a for profit healthcare system. So there's a bit of an irony here in that, the people who are, concerned about this stuff actually do have a bit of validity to it. Because if you have a for profit healthcare system, obviously some people are going to be making money off of you getting sick or injured or whatever. And, it's a weird world we live in where there are little degrees of legitimate concern, even in, you know, uh, some circles of people that have conspiracy theories and whatever else. So, it's all very complicated. There's no true 100% solution to this other than moving a lot closer in the direction that other countries are going. Obviously, people are always going to be sick. They're always going to get injured. I don't think there's any real way around that. And if there is, well, we're light years away from that. And death is going to happen. You're going to have all these different issues that relate to healthcare. But there are definitely ways to improve it. And overall, I think Obamacare, as flawed as it was, and it sure was flawed, but it was still a step in the right direction. Um, Overall, even though things could have been done much better, we could have had more of a universal healthcare system, as I've emphasized already. But, we're America. We have to do everything different.